Okay. Amazing. I was going to ask, but Gerd, you already beat me to it. Where is everybody tuning in from? And then PA. Okay, we got another Renee from PA. Paris. Very nice. Yes, Toronto. Me too. I think in the future we need some some warm up tunes. You know, play a little track here, get people comfortable. Because unless you just want to hear us talk to start. Cool. So as people are joining in here, we will have Renee actually take us through some fun little trivia. So yeah, keep letting us know where you're calling in from. Love the international, and I'll get started on a little bit of trivia in just 1 second here.
You've been requested to sing, actually, for the background music.
Okay, here we go, Nathan. I'm just kidding. Nice, a lot of Philly represents. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and share.
Oh, Blue Ridge. We have a cabin up in LJ. You guys got some snow.
Okay, share this. Okay. So I know you guys all came here to listen to Allison, but first we do have some exciting trivia for you all. So this is going to determine if you are truly a demo expert. And Renee, I know we have a couple of things that we're going to be giving away to some of the audience members answering this. So yeah, feel free to explain what we're about to get into.
Yeah, so if you guys were here last time at the last webinar that we had with Michael, we did a quick little trivia in the beginning. So basically the rules are put the answer in the chat first, and if you're correct, you win a little gift hamper. Maybe you get one of these sweaters, are very warm. So I will say it's keeping me very toasty right now. So we're just gonna jump in, and yeah, it'll be A, B, C, or D, pretty sure. And then just throw it in the chat, and who is ever first and correct wins the hamper.
Okay, first question.
And the first answer. Go just back maybe one.
Oh my God, jeez. Dope.
I didn't even read it. This is a thorough. Look at Lindsay. Is Lindsay one of our faves here? Okay, I'll just read it anyways. Which metric is most convincing to leadership when providing demo ROI? Total demo views, total time spent in demo, influenced pipeline, or number of hotspots / beacons clicked. And you guys saw it if you were reading ahead, but the answer.
All right, the answer that I already clicked to potentially
is influence pipeline, letter C. And I think, again, Ranga and everyone else helping us out can verify, but we will follow up with you guys after this for your addresses to send you some swag.
Okay, you know why? It's because like my click path is weird. Let me see. Okay, here we go.
There we go. Okay. Question 2, measuring glow ups. What's the best way to provide your demo? What's the best way to prove your demo is outperforming a static page? So A, compare demo views week over week, compare conversions before and after, ask sales if it feels better, my favorite, add more steps, and hope for the best.
Okay, come on. We need a couple more answers for this one. Maybe this is the one that stumped people. Or I guess it helps if I don't show the answer prior to.
It helps if I can also speak.
Yeah, I know. Who's this trivia master? that we brought up on here.
Ugh.
Okay. Did we get people answering? Okay, let's see if they got it right. You're right.
Answer B. Simple before and after conversion analysis is clean, credible, and leadership friendly.
Okay. And the last one.
Okay. What's the fastest way to optimize ROI once your demo is live? Too many steps, no clear CTA, pretty but no next action, or all the above? Got some good answers here. Is it a trick question? Possibly, maybe.
Okay. And I guess it was.
Yeah, the answer is all the above. Little play on a trick question, but yeah, definitely need clarity and direction. So all the above is what you want to look at when creating your demo.
Amazing. Thank you, Renee. This is kind of funny too, because we were definitely inspired by Allison's presentation with some of these questions. So you'll definitely learn more. And in some cases, maybe you'll actually learn how Allison did a little bit outside of the norm and best practices. But yeah, one of the things we constantly hear from our customers, from marketers in general, right? How do we prove the ROI of the projects, the marketing campaigns, the tools that we invest in? And we wanted to have Allison on for that exact reason. She has tried multiple different ways of measuring the ROI of Storylane, which she's going to walk you through all her different iterations and ultimately share with you where she landed, and one that leadership is actually very tuned into. And yeah, they consistently want to learn more. But before we go ahead and dive into that, I wanted to welcome Allison to the stage and would love for you to give a brief intro just on your role, company, and yeah, what you plan on taking us through today, Allison.
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. I saw some familiar names in the chat already. So excited to have some former colleagues and friends in the call today. So as Arthur already shared, my name's Allison Julander. I am a product marketer. I am based in Portland, Oregon. So I didn't see too many folks mention Portland, but if anyone else is in the Pacific Northwest generally, shout out to you all. I work at a company called PDQ, and we offer a suite of products that are tailored to IT people. It's specifically in the realm of endpoint management, if you're familiar. And some relevant context about our organization that I thought I would share up front, given the topic, is we are just over like 300 employees. Like, I think the way that you use a tool like Storylane can really depend on like what stage your company is at, how large your company is. So I think that's helpful to know about where I was coming from. We are also a product-led organization, and we have a technical audience, as I mentioned, the IT folks. So that all really informed like our interest in interactive demo platforms. We started looking for a tool in late 2024, and we purchased Storylane almost about a year ago. So this has and continues to be my first time owning an interactive demo platform end to end from that purchase stage, which was really fascinating. I mean, you're all here, so you're perhaps customers, but man, as a product marketer, so incredibly interesting to be in like the buyer purchaser's seat for a change. Lots of learnings there, could be a whole separate presentation. So from that purchase stage all the way to adoption, and then now like reporting and maintaining and growing. And so I've had full accountability as the owner of this tool at my organization within my team for proving its value and its impact in a fair, attributable, and like defensible way that my leaders could trust. And so today I'm basically going to tell you like the story of how I've gone about that, and like hopefully help give you some ideas that like I hope could translate to your organization.
Yeah, no, I love that. And yeah, I think one of the biggest aha moments for me too, I used to be in sales, now switching over to marketing, being on the buying side, you learn so many different things, and yeah, learn a ton about buyer empathy. So maybe that's a follow-up presentation we can do one of these days, Allison. But yeah, I wanted to share with you quickly the end result of what Allison reports on to her entire go-to-market team. By the end of this, we will be following up with you with a similar template so you can start reporting on this and start to prove your ROI just like Allison did. But we will get to that in just some few minutes here. But I think before we dive into the ROI, I'd love for you to kind of explain to the audience, how did you kind of choose the first demo, right? Yeah, what are the different things that it should have included? Where should it live? Just walk us through kind of the whole decision process of how you got to this point.
Yeah, totally. So as I kind of already mentioned, like our primary buyers are IT system administrators, and our audience was really central in determining this. Like our audience is your classic technical audience. They are very low trust. They're skeptical of claims, like especially marketing claims. They really want proof. And ultimately, they just want to see your product for themselves, or that is what they are always saying, at least. And so these qualities were already like pretty well known to us. As I mentioned, we're product led. And so what that looks like at our organization is we don't require buyers to talk to an SDR at all. So from our website, they can sign up for a trial, they can schedule time with an AE for like a full demo, or they can actually purchase directly from the website. And all of our pricing is laid out publicly on the website as well. So I offer all that context because that really informed for me, like from jump, that our first demo would not be a sales enablement tool or like a late stage deal closer. Like the opportunity within our like funnel context was really for these demos to be like a pre-trial education asset. And so the ROI for us, when we get to that, relates to kind of better decisions earlier in the funnel. And so as far as like where the first tour would live, we sell multiple products. So the product page for my product was most ideal in terms of kind of like highest kind of pages that get the most viewership, and just logically just felt like the best fit. And so my pitch kind of from the beginning was for it to be embedded and ungated, and for it to, the hope was for it to really get a user to understand our primary value proposition, with that like supporting evidence of just how that happens in our product.
Amazing. And I know, like, when we were talking about this, obviously it takes a little bit of getting into the tool and playing around with it, but I know kind of a big aha moment was a little bit more around once you developed your storyboarding process. So I thought that would have been a great thing to share with the audience, of maybe if they're feeling a little stuck, how do you typically, walk us through your process of storyboarding and setting up these Storylane demos?
Yes, happy to. I hope people don't mind that we're talking about the how, but I think it also kind of gives me opportunity to talk about some of the decisions as we get toward the closer to the ROI story. But to cover that quickly, I've now built a couple demos, and this is the process that I've kind of ironed out for them. And the storyboard is like truly the main event here. I also it would feel wrong to not shout out Eric Holland. I attended a webinar that he did on building out a full demo center, and he gave a tip about storyboarding, which I used and I am now repeating to you. So give him a follow on LinkedIn. If you're a product marketer, he's like a great follow in particular, I would say, but he posts a lot about interactive demo. So anyway, what I learned about building these demos, especially building a longer one, which we're going to talk about shortly, that's like over 20 steps, is that it's very similar to putting together like a very complex PowerPoint presentation, or like editing a video, or some other like pretty substantial marketing asset. I found that if I went straight into Storylane, which was like tempting when you're, just wanting to get to your result, to start crafting the demo, I was totally overwhelmed. And it was like a very frustrating process, not because of Storylane, but because I was prompting myself to make all of these different types of decisions simultaneously. Like, what screen am I showing? What type of guide will this be? What should the caption say? Where am I headed next? And so, like with anything, it's just so much easier if you break it down into digestible steps for yourself. And it seems like more work, but it saves you time in the end, as always. So step one is storyboarding. And I have an example that I'll show you shortly on the next slide, of what one of my storyboards looks like. Next is building out in Storylane, and then testing and iterating. And for my first tour, I stress tested it by reaching out to a couple of people at my company with like current or prior IT experience. So some connection to kind of like the buyer mindset, not a true perfect, like anonymous IT person. Like obviously they're biased and like know our product, but like better than, better than nothing. And all I told them was that like I needed their opinion on something. Like I didn't really give them a teaser at all about like what it was. And then when we hopped on the call, I had them screen share and just live react to me like as they walked through the tour and like observations they had. I also reached out to our lead UX designer and asked for her feedback too, more on like the usability front. Like, does this like navigate smoothly? Are there clicks that you feel are not ideal from a user experience perspective? And both her and like the IT folks, internal IT folks I talked to, gave me really helpful notes. And so I applied their feedback, and then it was time to publish it.
I love this, kind of blind test, right? Your ICP, if you're fortunate enough to have them internally at your company, not giving them a lot of, background and just kind of testing it out. But I think it's a great way for you to test your own product knowledge and see if you're well on the way. Now, I know we have an example that you're gonna kind of walk us through. So yeah, for those in the audience, they might be saying, okay, all this makes sense, but how do you go about filling this grid? Where do you even start? Walk us through what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so this is for the first tour that I built, and it's live on our site now. So there's like no secrets here, truly. But essentially, each row of this is a step of the demo. I think the copy is pretty straightforward. The highlight column is what type of guide and where that would be located, like what type of click it would be. And then the final column is where I listed like what screen would be displaying. And so when I wrote this, I just pulled up on one screen my own demo instance of our product, like my live like experience of the product. I already had a sense of like what I wanted to show. I kind of predetermined that we were going to do like an overview of the full product. And I knew that I would be utilizing the chapters function too. So that's that like second column from the left, kind of labeling color coded, like which chapter will this belong to. And it was so helpful because like my tour, as we'll talk about it more, I think on the next slide actually, but like my tour is very long. And so especially for my tour, but probably for a tour of any length, this is just so much like a much easier format to make significant changes to as you're hashing it out. And it also meant that when it was time to like move into Storylane and build the demo, it was so quick and easy. Like I was able to just like throw on some music and go to town. So this is like truly the harder part. And I don't think that's shocking to say. It takes more time.
Yeah. And I know in terms of the first demo, I'm sure there's a lot of discussion here. And I know we always talk about kind of best practices around how many steps here, but I know in some ways you didn't necessarily listen to that. Tell us a little bit more about why you decided to maybe start with a larger demo than what we typically would recommend.
Yeah. So, I mean, Arthur, you might know better than me, but I feel like the best practice, or people in the audience maybe, I feel like the best practice I see is like maybe like 5-ish steps, something in that frame. But for our demo, like we really wanted this to be an education asset, as I said, and we've got our audience needs where they really love detail and realism. And so I, knew that it would be a trade-off, but it was kind of a gain in some ways in terms of bandwidth to do a long tour. So like this tour is like over 20 steps, like it's very long. It's 4 different chapters. So we have the navigation to kind of minimize that so they can like pop over to like whichever part of the demo they're more interested in. But the other kind of benefit that I wanted to mention in terms of bandwidth was that like starting with something so small, I kind of had the foresight of like, let's just start with an overview. Let's start big. And then once it's built, like I said, that storyboard like takes time and thought, and there's testing and all of this. So like once we've got a nice long demo, this would be so easy to segment down because I'm walking through like different kind of feature areas / value props of the product. And we have done that now. So we have like kind of duplicated and then trimmed down to just 2 segments of this longer tour. And we have those embedded on like feature specific pages. So kind of like lower in the funnel even than this. But yeah, it was just a decision. I kind of talked it through with the team, and we all, knowing our audience, it was a pretty straightforward sell. And it's still been a pretty successful asset for us. So yeah, kind of tip one of just, best practices are there and helpful, but make sure that you're grounding them in like the needs of your organization, your funnel, your audience, all of that.
It's such a good call out, right? And you know your audience way better than we ever do. We're kind of like trying to aggregate all of this feedback and provide to you what we think is going to work best. But ultimately, this is where, yeah, you test it out. I really like that feedback of starting kind of overview and then being able to hone in and use that on specific product pages. I think you're doing more of the upfront work, and it could be a little bit more difficult. But once you have that, it just becomes so much more easier there. By the way, I didn't mention at the beginning, but we will be doing a Q&A at the end, but feel free to ask your questions throughout the chat as we go throughout here. If you have something top of mind, yeah, we definitely want to leave enough time at the end so you guys can have an open Q&A here with Allison. But moving right along, I know, yeah, there was so much that you were kind of considering of what to measure, and this is one of the questions that I love to ask in customer interviews, right? How do you know if it's working? So when you zoomed out, yeah, give us kind of this iteration of all of the different steps that you went to. And I think, should I jump into the next slide now here, Allison?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I'm excited to walk through this, and I have some animation, so I'll let you know, Arthur, when it's time to advance. But kind of the like broad takeaway before we dive into like what's on this slide and what's coming next, is I'm realizing now like this kind of echoes what I was just sharing about the demo. So maybe this is, I don't know, a habit of mine, a personality quirk, I'm not sure. But here I did definitely, again, kind of start broad and then collapse scope over time, which I think felt natural as like someone kind of new to these tools, new to thinking about like how to capture success, especially again for like we've like pretty specific constraints and variables that we're working with, but also in a way that like would hold up under scrutiny, could be explained really clearly to leadership, all of that jazz. So it took some iterations. So I'm going to walk through those iterations now. And so what I started with is, we're going to work across the slide. So you'll eventually see all three, but I laid out kind of like 3 higher level goals that I had, and then determined like how we might measure against them. And I really encouraged myself, I let myself think like best case scenario here, as you will see, like what would I love to be able to confirm as a result of this interactive demo. So conversions, obviously, we're on as you already saw, we embedded this on the website. So that was a really high priority, wanting to see like how conversions were happening on the page this was embedded on via the CTA buttons that are like within the Storylane window. And then our ops person suggested tracking if someone converted elsewhere in that same website session, because again, we were talking a lot about like how long this tour was and like people probably aren't going to make it all the way through. In the end, the first 2 bullet points here stayed, but that final bullet point, while it was really interesting, in practice, I found that it had like a couple issues. One was like a very human thing in that it was a pretty convoluted thing to explain what it measured to leadership, because what it was capturing was like people who entered on the page the demo was on and converted later. It didn't necessarily tie into a Storylane view. It was just a little bit convoluted, even though we had good intentions there. And I think the convoluted nature of explaining it like was totally a marker of the second point, which was just that the attribution claim felt a little bit weak. So eventually I scrapped that report because it didn't feel helpful. And then Arthur, it's time for you to click once more. Excellent. Excellent. And then secondly, the second point here, I feel like is really showing my product marketer hat here. And I was really hoping that this could help prospects get to that aha moment faster. Again, as I mentioned, this is an education asset. So like, are we educating better? Like, are we getting people to like a product qualified state more frequently and just more quickly generally, all of that jazz. And we have like a product qualified metric at my organization. And so I was like, oh, this would be great to do some cohort analysis of like, how does the with Storylane group perform versus kind of the general population. And I also wanted to get some qualitative feedback from sales on if like prospects were coming into conversations differently with like more product familiarity, if there's anything notable there. And I am like so sad to say that I actually scrapped both of these as well. I hope to re-explore the first one in particular. The first here came down to like a boring answer of just like internal data challenges as a blocker. I'm sure we've all been there as marketers. Data is always so tricky. I couldn't really get a cohort comparison that was apples to apples for a variety of internal reasons. Hopefully, eventually, though, I want to come back on it. And then the qualitative feedback, sales just didn't observe anything significant, but I was still really glad that I initially included something along these lines, because it was kind of a forcing function to like check in with them and just ask for feedback in case something like was coming up, but it just didn't really produce anything useful. But I think qualitative is always nice to throw in. And then Arthur, final reveal. Excellent. So finally, I didn't want the design of the tour itself to be a blocker or an issue. So I had looked at like best practice guidance for interactive demos. And like I looked through kind of what I had access to in Storylane. But given that our tour was both embedded and also quite long, these first two bullets, like the time spent and the tour completion rate, it became clear to me kind of the first time I pulled that data that like, oh, these were not useful data points to us. Like if someone only made it halfway through the tour and then converted there, like that was a win for me. But steps completed, I do still like to look at just to see if there's any sharp drop off that could indicate like an issue with the tour or something being really unclear, or like the click being in a weird spot or something of that nature. And we also had enabled that like navigation pane, as I mentioned, where people can like jump ahead in the tour to a different chapter. And so I've occasionally looked to just see like, as best I can tell, like if people are jumping to a specific area, and that's been interesting just to keep an eye on, like not high importance, but just nice to see. And then of course, like the CTAs really relate to kind of the first button. So keeping an eye on like which of the CTAs within Storylane were being clicked was also interesting to track. We had some assumptions there that turned out to be wrong. So it's been a good one to kind of keep an occasional eye on. So a lot here that became refined as it was kind of stress tested and just like more aligned to our use case over time.
Yeah, and I love how you had kind of some hypotheses, right, of what you're actually testing and some assumptions, and yeah, how you were proven wrong through some of the data. One of the other things that I thought was really unique in how you started to report to leadership was you looked at it kind of chunking it out, right? Top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Walk us through, like, I guess, why you decided to do that and how it kind of shows up in your reporting measurements.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm first going to answer a question from Nathan just really quickly, because it's sadly kind of a boring answer. But I saw your question in chat about comparing HTML versus screenshot-based demos. So we sought out, given that our audience is so technical and really values realism, we sought Storylane out specifically for HTML-based demos. So we have not done the screenshot type, even though I know that's supported. So yeah, I don't have an interesting difference to share with you there, sadly, but just wanted to call that out since I saw it. But yeah, to kind of dive back into what's on this slide. So from what I just talked through on the prior slide and to the point you just raised, I was really narrowing in on kind of cohort analysis for one, and then aligning my data to the funnel being like the best route and also a very like leadership friendly route. And also this was more manageable to just pull, because I was pulling this once a month. And as you saw, I started with like a ton of data points, very different data sources. And so this was both like most clearly attributable and also like informative metrics that I felt I, as the PMM owner, could fully stand behind without stepping on or duplicating other reporting as well, which was an element here I was also thinking about. And also just without the like unnecessary complexity of that example I shared that had like a poor attribution story. So on the left is a cohort analysis of the conversion rate of that product page that we added this to. And so I've color coded this here to be a really clear before and after picture of when we added the demo. But when the chart started to get to like about this length, it was less visually helpful. So I'll show you kind of what I shifted to next on the following slide. And then on the right, this is the kind of the funnel level chart. So this is color coded by funnel level. Red is like top of funnel, yellow is mid, and then green is bottom. And I would source this data like directly from Storylane. Since it's an embedded tour, the impressions equate to page views. And so the lower funnels don't include someone who engaged with the demo and then converted on a button elsewhere on the page. But the cohort chart on the left like covers that. It's inclusive of that, as well as it goes broader. It includes conversions from people who didn't engage, of course, with the Storylane tour. So hopefully that was clear, but like this felt like it covered kind of both bases based on the placement. And yeah, and including the definitions, as you'll see, I still include these on the slide because I've been sharing this data as part of like a broader meeting that we have where we talk through performance, you know, on a bunch of different marketing outreach efforts. And so I think it's whenever sharing it to leadership, I think like more context is never, you want to strike the right balance. You don't want to pack too much on a slide, but I think like a quick reminder of like what this means in the world of Storylane was really helpful because this was just a totally new product and type of asset for us.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest reasons for miscommunication is not even aligning on definitions, right? So great call out of constantly reminding leadership of, hey, when we're mentioning this is exactly what we mean. Yeah, and I know you also had some difficulty kind of measuring all of this because this is what product marketers' world is.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like I feel like this slide just really does sum up a lot of like what we just talked through. And yeah, measuring impact as a product marketer. I'm assuming it's a lot of product marketers in the audience. Apologies if it's not. But as a lot of you probably are aware, like are the I don't know, the way we have to go about that in our role is really by figuring out attribution and like what we're laddering up to and like telling that story ourselves, because it's not as straightforward as, you know, being in sales and having like an easy number that indicates like your output. You have to really, there's storytelling involved. So yeah, I feel like all these points probably don't shock or need too much additional explanation. But yeah, kind of like leadership wants the numbers, they want the data. And I think that really ties into kind of what I shared about, like, I'm the owner of this tool. And so it was really my responsibility from day one to explain, like, what is this product doing for us, and to support that and answer the questions that leaders have and iterate based on their feedback, as well as kind of my own sense of like the data story that I was telling. And then best practices, as I mentioned, like may not always apply. Our tour is really long. I think it's like pushing 30 steps. But that was really helpful to us. Like there were, you know, metrics that just weren't as informative for us as well. But, you know, they might be if we changed our use case or if we started using these in really different ways. And then attribution, of course, is never going to be 100%. I feel like I thought I knew that, like going into using this tool, but I think it sinks in way more deeply when you're like really looking at a data set, like got Excel open in front of you and are making sense of it and asking questions about it. And then like related to that, you know, it's definitely a little more specific to our use case, but I think there's just so many variables at play with website performance. So where this demo was living on the website, like there's just other factors like web traffic, seasonality, forms can break. My demand gen teammates were like adjusting the product page in various ways. Like it's a very fluid like asset, of course. And so I initially was putting a lot of pressure on myself to like understand all those changes as they could be impacting the demo. But in time that I found that it was best to just focus on like the data that I was the owner of first and foremost, provide my product marketing perspective, obviously stay aware of like the headlines, like if there's something really significant to be aware of going on with the website, but then like invite analysis from leaders and teammates and like have a conversation and like get additional context from them that can inform the insights I'm bringing as well. So that felt like really a manageable mindset to be in approaching this. Because yeah, I definitely had a moment where I felt myself spiraling toward like, I need to know everything that's going on with the website, which is just not sustainable. And like, I'm not a demand gen person, I'm a product marketer. So not a good use of my time when we have people that are in the weeds and like, it's their job to be in the weeds with that data.
Yeah. Now, I know this is like one of the questions you finally landed on. I'm curious, as you were talking about like inviting more input and analysis based on what you're presenting, did any of that kind of make its way through to this question, or was this just after multiple iterations where you're like, I think this might be the best way to measure the ROI of Storyline?
Yeah, I mean, this definitely came from those goals that I had laid out. I feel like even as I talked through that slide, I would not be surprised if a lot of you could see this coming because it just became really evident like so early that like our true headline was the conversion piece for the moment in terms of what we can measure. And so I wanted to be just like so abundantly clear in my reporting to leaders about the answer to this question. And I wanted it to be like just such a straightforward answer and not overly engineered or complex, so that like after the meeting or after reviewing the slides, they could walk away like understanding the answer to this. So I think we are going to start revealing what that looks like now.
Yes. Here we go. So yeah, in terms of starting to dig into your like reporting methodology, I know you're pulling from a bunch of different sources. I think you do it on a monthly and a quarterly basis, but yeah, walk us through how you're starting to report to leadership on this.
Yeah, so the sources include Storylane's analytics, as well as a report that I have access to that has like conversion rate data for the page the tour is embedded on, and then Salesforce reporting where I can see purchases that happened like after the tour was viewed. And so my like reporting asset that I update is a PowerPoint deck, which I'll show soon with kind of data from these places. But yeah, that was kind of how it coalesced in terms of like just the strict like data gathering piece of it.
Awesome. And yeah, ultimately, after all that iteration, I know this is what you landed on in terms of the final report. And I'm sure what a lot of people have questions around. So yeah, walk us through what we're looking at here today.
Yeah, so this shows month over month tour data. And as I mentioned, I like keep that definition alongside each term for clarity. I also like to include my takeaways on the slide. At our organization, at least, I think it's probably a common thing. There are often people who like encounter the deck outside of a meeting. And so having, the green box, like with kind of my headlines and like talking points, which here are like how much revenue can we kind of claim attribution or influence toward, as well as just kind of an assessment like of, the fact that we are seeing, as you can see on the slide from the rates that I have on display, seeing really consistent engagement and conversion for this. So it's a really reliable asset at this point. And so, yeah, this has been like really well received. The color coding by funnel level has also been helpful. And like the deck, I guess, that I've been adding this to is, as I mentioned, like a broader conversation with a lot of info and context about website performance. So kind of tying things to the funnel, like not only does it make sense or is it logical, but like also in this report, like formatting, people are kind of in that mindset where they're thinking about the funnel already. So it's been really well received. Yeah.
It's amazing. And I think what everybody might be wondering, what was the final impact in terms of conversion? I'll set you up here with this slide.
Yes. And so, as I mentioned, yeah, like to kind of talk through this slide a little bit. So the yellow and orange chart, like that cohort chart I showed before, I kind of mentioned earlier that that was getting a little less informative, in my opinion. It also was making me kind of do my spiraling around wanting to know everything about website performance because I had that initially. I mean, it was a helpful chart at the beginning because I was looking at like a week over week basis. But over time, as more time progressed, that like weekly view was no longer necessary. And again, it was like prompting me to feel like if I was presenting the data at that like granular of a level, then I needed to know more granularity around like what was happening with the website week over week. Was it like a holiday? Like we launched in May, so like Memorial Day, probably has an influence for like our US based buyers, et cetera, et cetera. And so over time, I realized that like a zoomed out view with our headline kind of metric was ideal here because it just kind of collapses some of that there's a lot of nuance, and we can always talk through the nuance, but just like at a very high level, like how is this performing? And so that was really the intent here. And really the biggest impact that like we found for Storylane is on the screen right here, like just showing that our demo is really meaningfully encouraging more people to convert. Like they're more likely to convert now that we have it on the page. And again, that performance has been like really consistent, which I've kind of supported on the, or I have supported in the data that was on that prior page. And the demo is just this reliable asset. So that kind of helps speak to, I don't know, like any kind of granular shifts, I suppose. And we've also, thought I just kind of mentioned this on this side. We have also done like an A/B test on one of our paid landing pages where we had the same page, like with the Storylane demo embedded, and then a second version where in its place we had a video. And the Storylane version, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it like definitely outperformed the video one, which was really great to see. So I think kind of the broader like before after cohort analysis is so helpful in really zooming out and kind of answering that broader question.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I know we're gonna keep the questions coming. Want to open it up just to kind of wrap this up and to talk about some of your overall learnings, Allison. Walk us through this. I think it was a 6-month time window. What were some of your top learnings?
Yeah, so kind of the big learnings to kind of summarize it down. Hopefully it all sounds kind of familiar because it's kind of everything that we've talked through. But, number one, I think not at all a shocker, but just knowing what your demo is and isn't, and like what it needs to do. Like who are you trying to reach? What funnel stage are they at? And then from there, tying it into the metrics that are kind of the second point here that are credible, that are ones that you can defend, that feel fair to claim attribution toward, I think is really an important step in the process. And then once you start presenting that data, I think this is just a universal thing in any organization. Like when you present on something, you are viewed as kind of responsible for that number. So asking yourself along the way too, like, are you well positioned to understand why a rate has gone up or down, or why a number has gone up or down? Like, are you feeling a lack of confidence? What is that telling you about your current data situation or story? Is it just like something you need to go read up on, or is it telling you something deeper about like, oh, I don't feel confident in this because the attribution actually maybe doesn't feel like 100% fair to claim. And then of course, just whenever presenting up, like keeping things like consistent over time, even while you're iterating, making things like just very, very easy for a leader to like quickly comprehend and absorb. Always useful, I feel.
Amazing. No, thank you so much, Allison. We got a couple of great questions coming in from the chat. AO or IO, hopefully I'm saying that right, asks, are you tracking velocity of close rates for visitors that view the Connect product tour versus those that don't?
So this is wonderful. We are not currently tracking this. I want to, though. This is on my wish list of things to expand toward. I particularly, given our like product-led model and that we have purchased it, you can purchase directly on the website. I really want to, it's probably kind of a little bit narrow, but like I really want to look at like the direct purchasers in particular and do a comparison there of like people that are purchasing from the website, like are like who viewed a demo, just the percentage generally, and like what percentage of those folks have viewed the demo, to be clear. But I love this idea as well. I currently like have a report that pulls in people that have purchased, and then it shows it's currently the data is pretty limited, so I kind of look at it pretty manually. But in Salesforce, I look at people that purchased our product, and then I have like a column in there indicating like the date stamp of like when they viewed the tour, and it's usually not too many a month that are coming in, so I kind of manually compare dates. But I would, the velocity of close rates, I feel like is a really great opportunity and a really great suggestion, and would love to track that.
Yeah, coming to you soon, hopefully in a couple of months. And then Michael,
I want to look at trial efficiency as well. Sorry to cut you off, Arthur, but that's the other one again on the product led side, like kind of revisiting that product qualified cohort analysis and seeing like the qualified rate in trial, as well as like how quickly and how often people are moving from trial to purchasing. So kind of a step back from that direct purchase, even just looking at the trial experience and like, is it accelerating their trial to purchase kind of turnaround?
Yeah. Gary, I see your question here. This was actually ungated. So all of the stats and data that Allison is sharing is coming from an ungated version of her demo. I wanted to get into Michael's question because I thought it was really in depth, and I think he's trying to understand more. So he said, if I understand you correctly, you're tying CTA click-through rate directly to sales. So if a customer clicks a CTA and a sales registered directly to their IP, then that is seen as a Storylane success, or can you help me understand that a bit more?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not claiming like 100% revenue attribution. The ARR piece, I'm really positioning as like marketing asset, like influence. So to be clear there. And so that report that I just described, I might have actually just answered the question already for you, Michael, but just in case, what I'm looking at is people that viewed the Storylane demo. So not necessarily people who clicked all the way through or even converted within the Storylane demo. They could have converted elsewhere. All I'm capturing is that we have a record of them viewing the Storylane demo, which via some of our integrations, we have like the HubSpot and the Salesforce integration. We can see some of that even if they didn't convert directly within the CTAs that are within that Storylane embed. Hopefully all of that makes sense. And so if a sale is registered to a contact who at one point viewed a Storylane demo, I'm keeping track of that just to demonstrate like how much ARR has come from people that viewed the demo. But yeah, definitely not. Again, I want to like make sure that what I'm claiming feels defensible and like real. And that to me would feel like a stretch to claim credit for that when there's a lot else that happens in the purchase process. So I hope that helps clarify your question.
Yeah, looks like you did answer it. Thanks, Michael, for that question. Okay, one more from Lisa Cook. I know we're right at time here. What were the biggest hurdles you faced to build confidence in your product using attribution with leadership?
Hi, Lisa. Lisa and I worked together a couple of years ago, so I'm delighted to see you in the chat. This is a really good question, and I feel like could be a whole separate conversation because I think this really can vary. Confidence is a big topic, and I think that the leadership like team that you have and like those personalities, like what their roles are, like who is invested in this, who is hearing about this, like there's so much there that influences it. But some things that come to mind in like the more specific component of your question of like building confidence in like the attribution story for the product was really just prompting myself and really, I've kind of alluded to this already, but like really seeing myself as the owner of this tool and of this data. And so really sitting with the reporting that I was generating and kind of holding myself accountable and asking myself, like, do I understand what is going on here? And kind of asking the question I mentioned earlier, asking myself the question here of like, do I understand like if this number goes up or down next month? Will I be able to dig into this and answer that? Yes or no? And if I feel scared to do that, like digging into, okay, why is that? Like, what do I need in order to understand this better? Do I need to meet with our marketing ops person and ask them about my Salesforce report? Like that was one competence challenge that I had where I was starting to feel like, oh, I don't know that I have a lot of questions about this report, or I have a lack of confidence in this report. I need to meet with marketing ops and make sure that I understand what I'm pulling in and that I'm filtering and like excluding all of the right things to really get to the information that I need. So I don't know, it's kind of a touchy-feely answer, but like, I feel like those are the biggest things for me were just around reflecting and really prompting myself to determine like, do I feel like I can really stand by what's on these slides? And even if the numbers go down a month, like, can I speak to that with assurance? I also think, I mean, this might be kind of odd to say, but I think just like being open to or being aware of the fact that like there could be failure. Like, luckily we have a success story. Like, this demo performed really well, but like, especially at the beginning, it's such an experiment. And so staying, I don't know, like, aware that the results could be good or bad. And like, either way, the job that I was assigning myself was to just understand what happened and why, and to be able to answer to that and come up with ideas on how to address it if there was an issue there. So I don't know, a lot of thoughts there, but hopefully that gets at what you were looking for.
Yeah, she replied in the chat. Sounds like yeah, you answered her question. Allison, thank you so much for this. This was great. Yeah, appreciate everybody tuning in to the end. One quick thing that we wanted to mention, we have a very exciting product launch of our own happening next week. So this is Storylane's newest product, RepX. Super exciting of how we're working in your interactive demo with this AI agent to help you across your entire funnel. There's a very good inbound use case, but if you have time next week, tune in on February 9th. Ranga, I don't know if, let me see if I can pull up the actual, here's the link, this is the URL. I don't know why I copied like that. Maybe that's Notion. But no, thank you all so much for tuning in. We will follow up with you with some resources that hopefully will help you build more of a case for ROI. Thanks to Allison. But yeah, thank you, Ranga. Yeah, I think I screwed it up. But Allison, thank you so much. This was great. And yeah, this was my first one. So hopefully, if I didn't bomb this one, you'll see me next month doing another customer webinar series on Finer Demos Club. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.